I started recording now. So.
Oh, okay.
Hello,
Well,
Caleb.
hello everybody. Hi.
Well,
Okay,
spontaneous
so
recording.
your music, it's got the Fibonacci, it's got colors, it's
Yeah,
got
if you talk to
432.
if you talk to a scientist, he would agree that the tones in music can be octaved, also that you sort of level up. But when you get to a certain point, it will become light, like a laser, I would imagine, or something. But anyway, what I did was to make this meditation music based on the Fibonacci equation. That is sort of the C-shale expansion. But if you look at my notes for this project, it's a circle and I have inner circles and so, where I put the notes. But it's sort of more the expansion thing is the rhythm, you could say. Uh, but the notes get longer and longer, but you have the inner circles that continue to repeat. It's kind of hard to explain. It's a very big project if you look at inside of the program, and it's all electronical, and I use different kind of what do you call it? Like on a keyboard, you can have different kind of sounds. But I also added gongs, like in the tong, that are marking different shifts. And instead of this kind of more, what can you say, like Eastern? No, more Gnostic would be the right term, where the the idea is to calm you or like self hypnotize you, or how can we explain it? It's very different construct, you could say, because you often have a it was of so long time, I can't judge everything, but the idea is not to put you to sleep. It's about awakening instead, and expansion is the ground theory about mine. And I call it a full earth cycle because it sort of have the theme of going into different seasons, and that's based on color. So I sort of, what do you call it? Put pepper on it with the different nature sounds also. Like yeah, it's based on the Swedish winter. You have a winter season and a summer season, and the different when it passes over also autumn and spring. So yeah, we
Yeah.
yeah we were talking about this before a little bit, and we thought that we just had to hit the record button. How did we get here, Caleb?
Well, I wanted to mention something else about the 432. So, um,
Yeah, it's in
have you
432.
heard have you heard about the nodes of the moon?
No, no.
So the nodes of the moon are figurative mathematical points. They're not actual physical things, but it's where the plane of the moon's orbit intersects with the sun's path.
Okay.
The zodiac. The zodiac is the sun's path. So the zodiac is the ecliptic. Imagine the celestial sphere, the night sky, and we have these paths there: the path of the sun, the path of the moon. So the nodes are where the eclipses happen, but the nodes don't stay in the same spot. They're on a cycle. There's two nodes. There's the north node and the south node. Um, that's where the two circles like intersect. Think of two rings that sort of
Mm.
are cockeyed a little bit. Well, it's a 18 point something 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 year cycle. And the square root
8.64 probably. Oh.
um can you look up the nodal it'll probably pop right up with the exact number
What
if you can look it up.
nodal? What?
Moon's node cycle, and it'll be like 18 point something something.
18.6112.
Yes, and it's actually a lot.
958 years. Yeah.
Yeah, but it keeps going and going. The square root of that number is 432.
All right. But this is
Yep.
this is kind of interesting.
And there's a wobble of the Earth. It's called the Chandler cycle. It's 432 days. It's a small wobble, tiny little wobble. It's like it's a small wobble where the Earth actually wobbles around in a circle about 30 feet.
Yeah.
It's not very big, but it lasts 432 days, and they calculate it for GPS systems because if they didn't, then every 432 days, everything on GPS would be off by 30 feet.
That's why it's off when you put markings down. You
Exactly.
know, this is kind of ironic, not to pause you, but it's called like this. Because the orbital plane of the moon process in space, the lunar nodes are also processed around the ecliptic, completing one revolution, called a draconic or nodal period.
Yeah, it's they're called the north node
The
is the head of the dragon and the south node is the tail of the dragon.
God damn it. Well, it sort of puts it into the theme a little bit what we have been figuring on also about the draconic part, the hidden, because the moon sort of rules man, like Ra in the book Saga is also the moon, but also the king. It's about rulership and ruling. I think it's very in the etymology. It's connected also to rulership, which is draconic on the highest level, I would think.
Well, kind of reminds me of when I was a kid riding the school bus on rainy days. Um, a school bus would have two windshield wipers going, and but they weren't in sync. They weren't going at the same time, but like every so often they would synchronize, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they would synchronize for maybe a few seconds, and then they would go back to being off again. It's that synchronization that is what they're tapping into with the mathematics and stuff. Because if everybody's trying to incorporate the same uh, mathematics into everything, then that's going to put a bit of a synchronization on everything. And I think um, that's how it gets manipulated at a certain point.
Speaking about
You know.
speaking about manipulation, there's something going on in the social sphere because we had this election now, and it became a right-wing victory. And in the social climate, especially where I live, in the more liberal, it's the most liberal town you could say in Sweden almost, because we have least problems with the problems that are in the south. And it, this town is also the cultural headquarters of Europe. in a weird way. Umeå it's called. But anyway, it's if you look at the media now in Sweden, it's all about the electric crisis. And so everything is about the electric crisis, that the electric prices are skyrocketing. And this with the climate and the climate change and all of that is very much a focus also. And Putin is the reason behind the high energy prices, the last prime minister says. I mean, and this sort of builds up, and this election is a tie-in to the timing, because we have no government now, and this is sort of the time where the rats can run loose, so to speak, because no one is taking responsibility for what is happening now, and it's a very interesting period to be observative. And if you look astrologically, we are recommended to just keep on working and stay focused on the work, so to speak. And the timing of it all is just incredible. And we're gonna probably see some effects and shells from this throughout Europe now, with the election in Sweden, because if you look at the geopolitical situation and the power structure that the Wallenbergs that I've been talking about encompass, who I see as the rulers of Europe, more or less, and some parts of America even. So it sort of has become the conclusion. I'm making this video about it also, but I'm not sure. I'm not going to be done in a very long time, it feels, because it sort of branches out on other subjects that we need to know about also. So I don't know how it will go with that project, but it's just interesting to see this shift that is going, and something is gonna go. It's gonna be a dramatic change, I think, in the future, very short future, especially when it comes to the internet situation and the energy, the real power shift. In a way, I don't know what to expect really, but something is going on. I can see the shift. So I don't know if astrology people often has a very good hint. I can see sort of, but to have the reality and see what's happening in the society. Meanwhile, I mean, if you in a very safe environment, you're not gonna maybe notice it in the same way, or maybe you just shut out the everything around you with media and so. But I tend to dive into the work sphere, and I love to work with people and sort of see where, so you get a reality check with people. I'm working as a, not a landlord, but I attend tenants and have the responsibility of the outside, so to speak. So it's a very social job, and yeah, interesting to see. It's sort of a hint. It's just interesting to see if this is gonna affect Europe also, the shift, when it starts here with the election and the shift. I don't know what to come. I don't know where I was
Yeah.
going with this, but it feels it's not for the better. So to focus on health and your own independence in the mind, and if you can physically, I think it's a good point to make a shift also. I mean,
Yeah.
I can really recommend my meditation there if you want some kind of meditation, but or some kind of, when I get home from work, I often lay down in the bed and sort of resets my, or contemplate, go into some kind of trance, but not this more. It's a very thought provocative instead of sleeping type. So I prioritize thinking over sleeping. And I also found a really interesting word in Swedish that I wanted to mention. It's called tycka and lycka. I think I made a ordspråk, alltså like a saying, that att tycka skapar lycka. It's very etymology close, this tycka och lycka. Men tycka is to, alltså it means to know or to stand for. But it's more I stand for if in a social context. Jag tycker att, I think that. But lycka means happiness. Så att tycka skapar lycka. Alltså to think creates happiness. You know, well-being. I think it's interesting that it's very close connected in root or Swedish.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
yeah. So, thinking about like nature and things like that, you know.
yeah.
Reminds me of Victor Schauberger. Have you ever heard of him?
He's my favorite.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite like people. He and Nikola Tesla, I think, is the two of the greatest minds in the modern age, so to speak.
Yeah, he watched water and actually
I have a story
observed
about him that I can fluid.
he observed water for so long that he actually learned the secrets of the swirls of the water.
He knew. They call him the water wizard. I can tell you this story of about, you know, he made this kind of, his father, I think, owned a lot of forest, and during the First World War, I think, they wanted to take out a lot of the forest from the inner parts, and the project to take this forest out would be very costly if you went with the traditional methods. But he came up with an idea to make this kind of we call it renna, so this kind of slides to transport the logs via water, like almost an aqueduct but made of logs, because he knew that mixing different kind of
they've done before, but his were more advanced.
Yeah, it's this mixing of the water types, so the logs wouldn't collide into the sides in some fashion. So, and also at the end in the pit, he had some kind of quality water, like from a deeper part, or what do you call, like spring water or something. I don't know, but
well, his secret was to he knew how to make the current move faster in the middle, whereas if you're not implementing those secrets, then the water has a natural tendency to like whiplash on either side.
Yeah,
back
he mixed
and forth.
water in some fashion, like an insertion from one drain into the, so it would, I don't know technicality, but I know the principle. But anyway, what I was gonna come to is that when he succeeded made this kind of arrangement, and it succeeded very, like he was very confident with this. A lot of people from the university came to see like the opening of this structure that he made, and he was standing behind the pond where all the logs were supposed to come, and the people there from the university, and you know, maybe the press, and you know, curious people, they thought he was, you know, stupid, because they thought he was gonna get crushed from all the logs. But he just stood there, and as the logs started to come, the logs just sank to the bottom, like the water just sucked it in, and he just stood there confident with this construction. You know, it works. But then later on, there was this scientist guy from the university wanted to like study him or follow him in the forest, and you know, to just observe this Schauberger. And they went in the saying it goes like this, like the university guy and Schauberger went into this nice forest, and there was this spring or water stream going down, and there was a trout there. And Schauberger asked this university guy, "Okay, now, professor, if I scare the fish, which direction will it go, upstream or downstream?" And the professor, he said downstream, of course, because the water flowed downstream. And then Schauberger went there and scared the fish, and the trout went upstream. And he said to the professor, "Now, professor, why did the trout go upstream? You don't learn that in the university, right?" I think that's a good question. And it does. It's the shape of the trout makes it easier to swim upstream, and it sort of have this almost if you take a flower from the flower of life, it has this kind of structure like an egg, almost a prolonged
He
egg.
also attributes it to a sort of invisible vortex that the trout creates in front of it that kind of like pulls it.
Yeah, but it talks about that there's one stream going upstream on electrical currents, and when it's thunder or lightning, this kind of current gets neutralized, or it has a much worse the currents get like neutralized. So when it's a thunderstorm and tensions in the air, it's the best time to do trout fishing, because the trout won't get carried as much of this electrical currents, because it flows within that currents. So it will become much more tired and need to eat more. And as a fisherman myself, this is a very good knowledge to have. I mean, this is natural science, but you can apply it. The modern world is built on this kind of, with the aerodynamics and all this. It's the same kind of thinking, the geometrical thinking. Like exactly the same way I made this music. It's geometrical music, you could say. Like Beethoven, I think it's Beethoven or Mozart. Beethoven, he built music based on this kind of science from nature, with the Fibonacci and this also. I think he was even tone deaf or deaf, but he could still make music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Caleb, I think we should not go into any more draconian. This is a more... I felt this subject, or wanted to make a little hinge about, yeah, what we feel, and this positive aspects. You know, when I was sitting with this documentary that I'm working on, I got fucking deranged, man. I needed to take a pause from it. And I found it, you know, I went to the forest this weekend and found this shaga on the birch tree. And the effect on that on me was incredible. I can really recommend it. Shaga. Sprängticka, we call it in Swedish.
Yeah,
Like,
it's really good stuff. I had like this severe pain in the neck once, and guess what cured it?
yeah, sprängticka.
Shaga tea.
It's called spräng. Spräng means to blow, also to explosion in Swedish. Sprängticka. It's very powerful. I think I sort of overdosed it, but you cannot really overdose it. But I almost got sick. It felt like a detox. Um, and I had this problem in the throat since I was a smoker. You know that it also always feels like it's something there in the throat, even after I quit smoke. And that's quite a long time ago, you know. And it's still there, but now, like after 3 or 4 days of the this chaga, it disappeared.
Double check and make sure that there's no um, overuse. No, overuse and overdose is a different thing. I actually spent a few years really studying a lot about wild medicinals, and some of them, especially the ones that are really powerful, and I'll name one of them, Mullen. Um, there tends to be a thing where if you use them too much, they not only stop being effective, but they'll sometimes even flip and only have a reverse effect. Sort of like antibiotics,
Mm.
where if you use antibiotics too much, not only will they not work anymore, they'll uh, have a reverse effect. So I would never want to do that with any powerful herb because you know, I want to be able to use it whenever I need it. So like mullein, um, mullein is used for respiratory congestion, congestion in your lungs, phlegm, and you can dry it out and smoke it, and the smoke will actually clear you out. But it's a fine line. If you overdo it,
Mm.
then it'll dry you out too much, and once you overdo it to a certain point, it actually creates a condition that it was originally supposed to cure, and you basically can't use it anymore for the rest of your life, pretty much. um, you basically just flip the switch on its medicinal effects, and it like, I don't know if chaga's the same way, but I
I
would
don't think
check.
so. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think it's the only kind of this kind of medicinal plant that has no side effects, according from what I read about it. And it's I don't know what's the thing about it, but it's very good also. You can just have that in water, but I mix it with the tea, of course. So I both get the power and this mushroom. But I also often have like a third part, also, like seeds or something, and also honey to really make it, but not every time. But I felt an incredible effect from it. To be honest, I've been drinking a lot, and I found like kilos of it. So, and it's very expensive here in Sweden, even. Uh, but it has to be processed in the right way. I heard that the most popular or the most fine kind of chaga you can buy come from the Finn, also some Finnish people. But they make it like tea. Don't boil it. You should have it like on sjudande, so when it's right before the boiling, like how you make the green tea in 70 or 80 Celsius, around there. So I've been doing that, like how I make my tea, and I first felt this really not detox feeling, almost getting sick, or heavy days, like processing. But when when I came out of that, I got much healthier. It's sort of when you, yeah, I've been experiencing similar experience when it comes to health. The detox period is always the difficult, but then after it's very very rewarding. I think it's worth it. Uh, Talking about health, this is a
Yeah.
yeah. I think we should almost if you didn't have much more to say, Caleb.
Well, I wanna just cap that off. Is that uh highly recommend anyone listening to uh study herbs
Mm.
really, really seriously. Like
Yeah, you get so
just
surprised.
yeah.
I mean, just
Throw
to
some
yeah,
get on Amazon, order some books, order a good 5, 6 books on herbs, something where you can find them in your local area. Start drying them and start using them and learn. It's fun. It gets you in touch with
yeah.
nature, and it's meditative and it's healthy, and then you'll be able to help people out. Too.
Yeah, I mean, this is just. I think this is a unique thing here in Sweden, though, because of the Ice Age, and in Scandinavia I can talk for. But I just sat down at the coast, because we have a lot of round stones, especially on the southern parts of, like, if you go to the coast, it's a lot of stones everywhere. Like small round stones everywhere. Uh, and if you just sit down and make like a if you just dig, you will find more and more stones, and you find a lot of different minerals and different crystals. This is just by sitting there and just digging, because most of the time people just scatter the surface of the this more precious stones. But if you dig by your hands, for example, in a very dense area of stones, I mean, I did this and I was sitting there for like half an hour, and just this was amazing. I found a lot of different kind of crystals and so, and different kind of rocks. And I always been a collector of rocks. But now, when this is a very certain recent thing with this chaga, because it's all over here in the northern part of Sweden, and it grows on the birch tree. It's called sprängticka, like I said. But to know that, and to be able to gather this hunter-gatherer type of mentality, is a very healthy. Like you said, you get in touch with nature and you get this kind of relationship with it. That you have your places where you go, and you get another kind of value. Because if you only like plow all the trees down, all the other good stuff within the biology will also disappear. I'm a very protective guy of forest. I hate when you just shovel forests in the industrial way. Uh, we have some untouched forests where I live, but there was one forest that got demolished, and I was fucking sitting there crying on a rock when I came there, when they have scraped everything away, because it was a very good place to gather the chanterelle, or chanterelle. Cantarelle, we call it in Swedish. The French, I think, is chanterelle or something. But yeah, this kind of appreciation that you can get bring home with the berries and all of this. I have my freezer is filled, but my you know the more warm area where you have the milk is kind of empty. I, I love to gather, and I also dried a lot of stuff, like the shrooms, and like as a cantarell, and I have a lot of elk meat that my brother and father, they are hunters, so they kill a lot of game meat. They have game meat. I eat only this kind of meat that I shoot, and I trade it for fish that I fish, and mushrooms and herbs.
Can you get me citizenship over there, dude?
Yeah, man, just come
I'm
here.
moving.
Just
Just
coming, man.
come.
I mean, Sweden is kind of open to go to, and we
What do
need.
you do in the winter when it's like dark for 3 months or whatever?
Well, I work.
How long is it dark?
Uh, the worst time it's dark all day.
For how many days?
Uh, like a couple of weeks. It's in
Oh.
the. It's around the New Year, but you have some hours of sunlight where I live, like 3 or 4 hours. But it's worth it. You know, it's you get into the mode because this sort of allows you and makes you very comfortable at home. You know, you're sitting inside and do art or anything. So it's you have to sort of live after the cycles. Like I do that. I save up all the computer work and the inner when you sit inside to the winter, and then in the summer I'm very much outside, and in the autumn I gather a lot from the fruits of nature. And so if you learn to live according to the cycles and what nature provides within the situation, I think it's, you know, it's not too bad, Caleb. You know, I mean, you have the 24-hour sunlight in the summer also. It's a magical thing. Yeah. Because the growing power what you plant in the spring is immense.
I'm trying to imagine what it would have been like at the North Pole when there was no tilt in the axis. It's like you would see the sun like right
Enormous sun power.
hovering. It would be like hovering right at the bottom of the sky though,
Yeah.
and it would just make a big circle every day.
Would be very interesting trees because a lot of plants are clocked to the cycles of the night. Uh, for example, the hemp would have become trees here without any production of flowers. I mean, that would be amazing. Imagine hemp trees, for example. Yeah, but this kind of
Wow.
very different kind of biology. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of things to talk about, but when
Yeah.
it comes to health, I mean, I live this kind of outdoor lifestyle as much as I can, but this season thing, it really forces you to do it in another sense, I think, because the winter can be, we call it ide, or the bear goes into ide at the winter, and ide in Swedish, the idea is when the ideas comes. So if you're comfortable with that, you will love it here. And the doors are sort of open. I would suggest moving to Sweden very soon because now we're gonna get a more right wing. But if you are like a working class person from America or so, it's no problem. Okay, like if you're yeah, this is this is what we need actually. Uh, Especially in the town I live in, it's the most it's the most growing town in Europe, one of them. So where I live is gonna expand. They are putting a lot of resources into this town. I don't know. It's the cultural capital of Europe. I mean, holy fuck. That means something. Um, the Draconians, or I don't know what kind of movement, you know. I know that the Wallenbergs have a big investment within the university. You know, they are funding the universities, the educations. They are sort of choosing what people can choose between on the university. They sort of creates the university and what you can educate there. They call it the kretslopp. It's like a circle that goes in, like a serpent eating his own tail almost. This kind of philosophy that they want to own the entire cycle in the society, and this is how they do. and work, and they are open with it. If you type wallenberg.com, they explain it themselves how they work, in both Swedish and English. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but I mean, in my eyes, they are like I said, Sweden is like the capital of Europe. If you look at the EU flag, it's blue and yellow with 12.
Well, what is the family symbol for those guys?
It's very similar to yours.
Really?
Mm.
What's it? What is it?
That's
Does it have the two dudes?
wait, I'm gonna take a. I think they come from a. They have really hard to research before the Vasa. They are not a noble family in the highest regard, in Sweden at least. They are mostly They are they have very much the same kind of type of heraldry that you have. I think I cannot find it when I search for it, like spontaneous.
Well, we'll have to keep that as a surprise for the next episode then.
Yeah, I've been, this video I've been working on, I dive heavily into the power shift that happened when the Wallenbergs took over. And I don't know if this was the seat for the Templars. I think it was the seat, actually. And the double-headed eagle is just a front, because someone has to be the eye. It can only be one. And if you look at the symbolism within the double-headed eagle in Gothenburg, they have one crown on one eagle and one crown on the other head of the eagle. It's a double-headed eagle. But in the middle, in the center of the eagle, is one crown also, and a shield around. It's the heart that they are protecting with its legs spread out, and they are. But I actually think the original structure that they created, one of the heads of the eagle were the Russian Tsar, or the Russian ruler, and the other head of the eagle was the British. And then you had the third crown from Stockholm.
Be interesting to see if there's a three-headed eagle anywhere. Somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
Someone must have made a three-headed eagle at some point. Well, hey man, let's go ahead and wrap it up. My battery's about to die. So.
Yeah. I think this one came out good anyway. So, okay, Caleb, thank you for this spontaneous thing.
Thanks. Stay in touch.
Yeah, keep healthy.
You too.
Okay, I will. Bye-bye.
Bye.